Hello everyone, my name is Barbara. I am a 31-year-old office staff living a rather full life with my husband Eric and our 4-year-old daughter Denise, making us a cozy family of 3. However, our household also includes 2 more members, my reserved father-in-law Jack and my difficult mother-in-law Emma. When Eric and I decided to get married, it was understood that we would live with his parents. Jack, who struggles with mobility issues and has a profound anxiety about driving, relies on us for support, a situation that has kept Eric at home even before we married. I respected and admired Eric's dedication to his family, and having grown up with my grandparents, I initially had no reservations about living with my in-laws. However, the reality of living with Emma and Jack has proven more challenging than I had anticipated. Emma, in particular, is a woman of fierce temper and a surprising capacity for pettiness. Unlike my grandmother, with whom I shared a warm and easy relationship, Emma has an edge that I had only seen depicted in TV dramas and never believed could be real until now. From the very first day we moved in, Emma established her domain with an iron fist. "Once you step into my house, you follow my rules," she declared, and she meant every word. My daily life became a series of endless chores, cooking 4 meals a day, cleaning, doing laundry, gardening, and even washing the car. Any mistake became a pretext for criticism, so I learned quickly to mimic Emma's methods to avoid conflict. Yet, even when I managed the tasks alone, Emma would often hover over me, watching every move I made with a critical eye. Despite the tensions, Eric often remarked half-jokingly, "I'm glad to see how well Mom and you are getting along." Both Emma and I would grimace at his comment, our smiles brittle. Exhausted from the relentless pace set by Emma and her frequent outings, I found solace in conversations with our neighbors, who often express sympathy, saying, "Emma can be so strict, it must be tough for you." Indeed, their understanding offered a small comfort in my challenging daily life. I gradually came to understand that Emma had a certain reputation in our community, known for her overbearing demeanor, especially towards Eric's previous girlfriends. Despite Eric's popularity and good looks, Emma's nagging had driven many away. Initially, I was completely unaware of this, and when I first discovered it, I felt a mix of disbelief and despair. Eric and I had been enjoying a harmonious marriage. Jack, though quiet, was a kind man, and my only real struggle seemed to be Emma. I hoped that by enduring her presence, we might eventually find peace. Everything shifted when Emma learned I was pregnant. For a fleeting moment, her eyes lit up with excitement, but her enthusiasm quickly soured when she found out we were expecting a girl. "A girl," she scoffed, her disappointment palpable. "She'll just get married and leave someday. There's no point in raising her well. Nothing can be done now. You should hurry up and have a boy." I was alone with her when she said this, and I couldn't contain my anger. "Every child is precious regardless of gender," I retorted. "Besides, we don't have a family business that needs a male heir, so why does it matter?" She responded sharply, "Our family has been landowners for generations. The family name is important, and it would be troublesome if it were to end." Honestly, I hadn't married Eric for his family's background, and Eric himself didn't seem concerned with continuing any supposed legacy. He was thrilled about our daughter's future and spoke of it often, showing his excitement about raising a girl. However, Emma never revealed this demanding side to her son. She operated from the shadows, insistent on having a grandson, which made her manipulations all the more insidious. Her attitude didn't improve even after Denise was born. In front of Eric and Jack, she would dote on Denise, but on her bad days, she would coldly push her away, making it clear she held little affection for her. As Denise grew and began to speak, she often remarked, "Grandma is scary," and gradually started to avoid Emma. One day, Eric noticed Denise's apprehension and confronted his mother. "Mom, Denise seems to be afraid of you. You haven't been harsh with her, have you?" Perhaps intimidated by Eric's stern demeanor, Emma began to alter her behavior, making an effort to bond with Denise by taking her to the park and engaging more positively. Although Emma's treatment of me continued to deteriorate, I had grown thick-skinned to her petty remarks. What mattered most was her improved behavior towards Denise. Seeing this change, I decided it was time to return to my full work schedule post-maternity leave and re-enter the workforce fully. Eric and I arranged our work hours so that the in-laws could look after Denise for a few hours each weekday, thus avoiding the need for daycare. Jack, surprisingly, was delighted with this arrangement and spent joyful hours with Denise. Given Jack's involvement, Emma found it difficult to neglect Denise and, albeit reluctantly, started to take proper care of her. One hectic weekend morning, I was suddenly required to work due to an emergency. My abrupt departure caught everyone off guard, and Emma shot me a displeased look as I hurriedly explained the situation. Unfortunately, Eric had also left for work early after swapping shifts with a colleague, and Jack was attending a friend's child's wedding. This left Denise alone with Emma, which was less than ideal given their strained relationship. I quickly called Eric, asking him to come home as soon as he could. I briefly considered finding a drop-in daycare, but the short notice made that option seem unlikely. As I was weighing my options, Emma unexpectedly offered, "I'll take Denise to the shopping mall. You better head off and come back quickly." Denise, overjoyed by the prospect of going out, eagerly tugged at Emma's hand and cheered. Relieved by Emma's initiative, I thanked her profusely and reminded Denise to stay close to her grandmother. I then rushed to work, feeling a bit more at ease. However, my relief turned to the alarm that afternoon when I received a chilling call from the police. "Your daughter is safe with us," the officer informed me. "She was found locked in a car. A passerby helped her. Please come to the shopping mall's office immediately." Trying to maintain my composure, I was at least reassured that Denise was unharmed. I attempted to contact Emma multiple times but received no response. After arriving at the mall and explaining the situation to a security guard, I was swiftly escorted to the office where Denise was waiting. Seeing her there, surrounded by police officers and looking visibly shaken, I rushed to her side. We hugged each other, trying to find comfort in the scare. I learned that Denise had been locked in the car, a situation fraught with dangers like overheating and dehydration, especially on a sunny and warm day. The thought of what could have happened had a Good Samaritan not noticed her shook me deeply. With more than 30 unanswered calls to Emma, my worry turned into anger and disbelief. Determined to find her and understand the situation, I told the officers about leaving Denise with Emma. Their confirmation that no adult had been with Denise when she was found only deepened my suspicions that Emma had negligently left her in the car. Resolved to confront Emma, I decided to search the mall. Meanwhile, Denise, still clinging to me and visibly upset, seemed to need some comfort. I bought her some fruit drink to help calm her down. The police officers assured us of their help in locating Emma, and we thanked them for their cooperation before leaving the office to continue our search. The whole ordeal reignited my frustrations with Emma, but my immediate focus was on soothing Denise and resolving the situation as safely as possible. 25 minutes after sending my initial message to Eric about the situation, I followed up with another, informing him that I was currently at the mall searching for Emma with Denise in tow. I urged him to head straight home after work. Eric's reply, riddled with typos, signaled his distress. Knowing that showing panic would only unsettle Denise further, I asked him to remain at home for now. To lift Denise's spirits, I bought her favorite fruit drink and some snacks as we continued our search around the mall. Emma, who often used shopping as a reason to get me to drive her, had a habit of deciding impulsively on these outings, expecting me to adjust my schedule to suit her plans. She never offered so much as a thank you, just immersed herself in her shopping while I managed Denise's needs and whims. Her selfishness was infuriating, especially recalling an incident when she had claimed to mall security that I had abandoned her. As we navigated the crowded mall, I couldn't help but replay the morning's stressful events and her previous behaviors in my mind. My frustration boiled over, thinking about how she had left Denise alone in the car. I was scanning the crowd meticulously when Denise suddenly pointed and shouted, "Grandma!" Turning around, I saw Emma walking just behind us. She let out a scream for some reason, then turned and bolted toward the parking lot. I hurried after her, thankful that the weekend crowd slowed her escape. As we reached her car in the parking garage, a shocking sight stopped me. The rear seat window of her car was shattered. "You did this, didn't you?" Emma accused, pushing my shoulder. "I didn't do anything," I retorted, standing my ground. "Who else could it be? And now you want me to pay for this car? You're the one who left Denise alone in the first place. She's only 4 years old. Don't you know children have died being left in cars like that? Were you trying to hurt her?" My words seemed to take Emma aback, perhaps unused to my confronting her so directly. A crowd began to gather, sensing the tension. Realizing this, Emma got into her car, despite the broken window, and shouted, "I'll remember this when we get home. You're paying for this." She then drove off hastily, causing more glass to fall. "Stop right there!" The police officer, who had spoken with me earlier, intervened. Running towards the scene, he called for backup, arriving slightly out of breath. As Emma saw the police, her previous confidence vanished. She obediently followed their instructions, parking the car back in its spot. Surrounded by several officers, Emma was led through the back door, her bravado replaced by compliance as she faced the consequences of her actions. The police officers invited both Denise and me to come along as they continued their investigation. In the very chair where Denise had sat earlier, now it was Emma who found herself seated, looking defiant and agitated. Denise, finally feeling safe, fell asleep in my arms as one of the officers began questioning Emma. "Why did you leave Denise alone in the car?" he asked sternly, but Emma responded sharply. "More importantly, someone smashed my car window. That's vandalism, isn't it? You're the police, so catch the predator. It must be this woman," she said, pointing accusingly at me. The officer corrected her. The window was not broken by Barbara. A passerby saw Denise locked in the car and broke the window to rescue her. When they heard Denise's faint cries from your car as they passed by, they acted to save her and immediately notified us. He continued, explaining that they were able to respond quickly because, fortunately, Denise hadn't been in the car too long. We found an item with Barbara's name among Denise's belongings, which helped us contact her immediately. I nodded, my emotions nearly overwhelming me as I considered what might have happened if that passerby hadn't intervened. Yet Emma's demeanor remained defiant. "I often shop alone, so I forgot I had Denise with me," she claimed. "I realized it as soon as I entered the store and was returning to the car when I saw Barbara with Denise, assuming she had broken the window." The police dismissed her attempt to deflect blame. "But Emma, your car's dash cam recorded you checking on Denise in the back seat before you covered the windows to obscure her from view. Why would you do that?" they pressed. Emma, outraged, slammed her hand on the desk. "That's an invasion of privacy. You can't do that, even if you are the police," she yelled. Denise stirred and woke up due to the noise, so I decided to leave the room with her to keep her calm. Emma's loud protests still audible through the door. The officers later told me that the dash cam had also captured Emma softly telling Denise to sleep tight, contradicting her claim of forgetting Denise. Under intense questioning, Emma finally broke down and revealed her true intentions, shockingly admitting, "It's all because that woman had a daughter. I thought if Denise was gone, she would have a boy next." This confession was relayed to me after I had left the scene with Denise, who had become upset upon waking. The thought of Emma's callousness was unbearable. Had I been present, I might have confronted her right there. Emma was subsequently charged with child endangerment and arrested. Despite the overwhelming evidence, she refused to accept her fate quietly, continuing to argue and planning to hire a lawyer to fight the charges without showing any remorse for her actions towards Denise. I discussed the situation with Eric, expressing my desire to no longer live with Emma. Fortunately, Eric and Jack supported my decision. Jack, equally appalled by Emma's actions, served her with divorce papers through a lawyer. Eric, furious about the danger Denise had been placed in, declared they would never meet Emma again. Meanwhile, Emma resorted to writing letters to relatives, desperately seeking support. The gravity of Emma's actions had left a deep mark. Not surprisingly, she found no one willing to assist her, facing the likelihood of spending her remaining years in solitude after her release. The whole incident turned into neighborhood gossip, prompting us to consider moving. Jack, ever thoughtful, expressed his remorse for the inconvenience caused and kindly offered his savings to help cover our moving expenses. We sold our home, and Jack chose to live independently near our new location. From now on, I'll take it easy, thinking of it as a new life, he said, a hint of joy in his expression. About 8 months later, after we had settled into our new life, we learned we were expecting our second child. The relief of being away from the stress associated with Emma seemed to have contributed to our newfound happiness. Ironically, it was a boy, the grandson Emma had always desired. However, unlike Emma, we were committed to loving our children equally. Denise was thrilled about her brother's arrival, often gently rubbing my belly and eagerly anticipating meeting him. As my pregnancy progressed, we made regular visits to Jack's house, maintaining our close bond. Jack always greeted us with a wider smile each time, delighted by Denise's growth. Despite his past with Emma, Jack had his moments of sadness, but we were determined to support each other and build a nurturing family environment. On a different note, in our family planning, I found myself dealing with another challenging family dynamic involving my future mother-in-law, Megan. As I hurried back from an errand to buy beef, Megan impatiently awaited my return. "Hey, how long does it take just to buy some beef?" she chided over the phone. "Sorry, I couldn't find any good beef," I replied, trying to keep the conversation light. "Just come home already. Michael is with you, isn't he?" she pressed, her voice tense. "Going back is a bit impossible, huh? Just come back quickly, whatever it is," she added, clearly flustered. "Megan, you were the one who said not to come back until I bought the beef," I reminded her. My name is Brenda, a 28-year-old office staff living in Philadelphia, USA, cohabitating with my boyfriend Michael, who is the same age. Michael and I met in college, shared the same club, and have been dating for 4 years. After settling into our careers post-graduation, Michael proposed and we planned to marry this spring. We had discussed visiting our parents for a family meeting before the wedding, but logistical challenges due to the distance meant overnight stays were necessary. Despite my attempts to set a date, Michael skillfully avoided committing, raising my concerns about his reluctance to marry. When I broached the subject, he simply said, "I don't want to see Mom," without elaborating further. I knew Michael had been estranged from his home since college, often spending holidays alone while I visited my family. "I'm not on good terms with Mom. If I go back, I might not return," he would say, hinting at deeper issues. I had never met Megan, but from Michael's descriptions, I harbored a negative image of her. However, avoiding her indefinitely wasn't feasible if we were to marry, as she would become my mother-in-law. I suggested, "Why don't we go to my parents' house first? It's a bit far, but it'll be easier on you than going to your house, right?" Michael seemed thoughtful and a bit hesitant about my suggestion, reflecting the complexity of our impending family union. If Michael had expressed reluctance to visit my parents as well, the path to marriage would have seemed insurmountable. But fortunately, he agreed, albeit hesitantly. "Let's do that. My home can wait a bit longer," he said. Feeling relieved, I quickly finalized our plans before Michael could reconsider, and inform my parents that we would soon be visiting for a family meeting. When we arrived after a long absence, my parents welcomed us with open arms. Both Michael and I were anxious about the meeting, but my parents showed no signs of it. They treated Michael as if he had always been a part of the family. The meeting itself concluded swiftly, and the conversation soon shifted towards Michael's family. As the topic arose, Michael's demeanor changed, casting a shadow over his features. Sensing his discomfort, I looked at him, trying to gauge his feelings. "Michael doesn't seem to get along with his mother much, does he?" my mother asked, picking up on the tense atmosphere. Seeing the look that passed between us, she added with a note of concern, "I just hope you won't have to face any harassment from her as a daughter-in-law." "It's okay. We're not going to live close by, and it doesn't seem like we'll see each other much," I reassured her. My mom then turned to Michael. "Please make sure to take care of Brenda," she said empathetically. Michael nodded, forcing a smile, though I noticed his hand gripping his phone under the table was trembling. As we discussed various topics, my parents mentioned that we had planned to stay overnight at a nearby hotel. They insisted on inviting us to dinner since we had not included meals in our hotel booking. I happily accepted their invitation. Looking over at Michael, I noticed his expression was tense and strained. "Michael, are you okay with staying for dinner?" I asked, sensing his discomfort. "It's not that I don't want to, but..." His response trailed off, non-committal and distracted. Just then, my phone vibrated with a call from an unknown number. Michael stared intently at the screen as I answered hesitantly. "Hello?" "Ah, Brenda. Michael has always been under your care," came a voice from the speaker. Instantly, Michael's face contorted in disgust, and I realized it was Megan calling. "I've been under Michael's care as well, but that's not what I'm calling about. You're at your parents' house now, aren't you?" she asked, her tone mocking. "How do you know that?" I replied, surprised and looking at Michael, who shrugged, indicating he was unaware of how she knew. "Can you come back soon? Why didn't you come to my house first? Is there something you're hiding?" Megan's laughter rang out mockingly over the phone. "I'll be sure to visit your place soon for greetings," I responded cautiously, choosing my words carefully to avoid further provocation. "Is that all you wanted to talk about? We have plans to dine with my parents tonight." My goodness, planning to feed my child dirty foods? Foods full of additives are not suitable for my child. Bring Michael back home immediately, Megan yelled into the phone, her voice hysterical. Stunned by her forcefulness, I nearly dropped my phone. My parents looked over, concerned by the commotion. It seemed impossible to reason with Megan in her current state. "Please calm down. We will visit you for greetings," I promised unilaterally, though it was clear she wasn't listening and hung up forcefully. Michael sighed heavily, meeting my gaze. "I hadn't told you, but during a recent business trip, I accidentally met Mom. We had to eat together," he confessed, explaining the unexpected interaction that had left a mark on him. When Michael revealed how Megan had gotten my number and tracked our location through an app, my parents were left speechless. This level of surveillance and overprotectiveness towards her adult son made me shudder. It was clear why Michael had been so hesitant about reconnecting with his mother. "Is it okay to serve dinner?" my mother asked timidly, sensing the tension. "Yes, please. I'm sorry for the trouble," Michael replied, managing a strained smile as Mom headed into the kitchen. In a quiet voice, he confessed to me, "I don't want to go home." His words were heavy with reluctance, and though I wanted to respect his feelings, we couldn't proceed with marriage without having a family meeting. "We don't have to stay long, but we at least need to have a family meeting," I reassured him, setting a date to visit his family. I braced myself to persuade them to accept our marriage if needed. Dinner at my parents' was thoughtful but filled with Michael's silent apprehension. The conversation was minimal on the flight to his family's home. When I tried to engage him about what gift might please Megan, he consistently claimed not to know. Upon arriving after a long journey of flights and bus rides, Megan was waiting at the entrance, dressed strikingly. Her face brightened at the sight of Michael. "I've missed you, Michael. Have you been well? Not catching a cold, I hope?" She fussed over him, seemingly oblivious to my presence until I spoke up. "You must be Brenda. Quite plain, aren't you?" "That skirt is also in poor taste," Megan remarked, critically eyeing the chic skirt I had carefully chosen. She dismissively tugged at my blouse, critiquing it harshly. The gift I brought was disdainfully thrown into the trash as soon as we entered the living room, which Michael retrieved with a grimace. "I'm sorry, but we don't have the habit of eating such cheap stuff here," he murmured as he was about to open the gift. I quickly stopped him, fearing another outburst about additives. During the tea that Megan prepared, she conspicuously ignored me, lavishing Michael with homemade sweets while I was left without. Michael remained silent throughout, barely touching the snacks. I took it upon myself to initiate a formal family meeting, which prompted Michael to engage minimally with Megan. However, once the meeting concluded, he reverted to silence, his discomfort palpable. "How about ribeye for dinner? Michael's favorite, right? You'll stay for dinner, won't you?" Megan pressed, despite our plans to leave before dinner. Caught off guard, we awkwardly agreed. For the first time, Megan addressed me without sarcasm. "That being the case, could you go buy some beef? I only feed Michael the finest, so make sure you order correctly. I'll teach you how to make dishes that Michael will like. After all, he probably can't stand to eat what you cook," she remarked cheerfully. Despite her claim, Michael had never left any meal I cooked untouched during our cohabitation, a fact that contradicted her insinuations and highlighted her continued efforts to undermine me. This trip was revealing more than I had anticipated, and I was beginning to understand the depth of Megan's manipulative tendencies. As Megan sent me out the door with the directive to not return without the beef, I didn't feel defeated. Rather, a sense of resolve settled over me. Although I was concerned for Michael, his recent show of defiance gave me confidence that he could handle Megan on his own. Without a backward glance, I began walking towards the city center. Suddenly, I heard my name called out. Turning around, I saw Michael jogging toward me. He was out of breath when he finally reached me. "Are you okay?" he asked, catching his breath. "Yeah," I replied. "If they're going to insult you, I'm not going back." I stormed out. Michael seemed puzzled for a moment. "What about the beef?" he inquired. I shook my head. "I haven't bought it yet, and we don't need to. We're not going back there," I stated firmly. Though our original plan was to go sightseeing after the family meeting, the unexpected turn of events meant our sightseeing started earlier than planned. "Megan must be waiting for me to buy the beef and return with you, but we're not going back," I muttered to myself, deciding instead to take a leisurely tour of Michael's hometown. As we strolled through places like the park Michael used to visit in elementary school, my mobile phone buzzed incessantly with calls, all from Megan. Eventually, fed up, I answered the phone reluctantly. "Hey, how long does it take just to buy some beef?" Megan's voice was as demanding as expected. "Sorry, I couldn't find any good beef, not any. Just come back already." "Michael is with you, isn't he?" I replied, keeping my tone light yet detached. "Coming back is a bit impossible, huh?" "Just come back quickly, whatever it is," she insisted, her voice growing flustered. "No, it's impossible," I stated calmly. "Megan, you were the one who said not to come back until I bought the beef," I reminded her, referencing her directive to not step on their property until I had fulfilled her condition. "I'm just following your order, Megan. Don't you think I'm being a good daughter-in-law?" I challenged. Megan was momentarily at a loss for words. "Take that back. Come back right now," she demanded, her tone sharp. As I hesitated on how to respond, the phone was suddenly taken from my hand. Michael, who had apparently grabbed it, spoke assertively into the receiver. "Like I said before, if you insult Brenda, we're not coming back," he declared, his voice firm. His statement was a clear stand against Megan's overbearing attitude, marking a significant turning point in our relationship with her. It was a moment that not only affirmed Michael's support for me, but also signaled a new beginning for us, free from the toxic influence that had loomed over his life for too long. After Michael's firm declaration, he handed the phone back to me, but before I could say anything, Megan's tone changed. Her voice, now desperate, softened significantly. "Hey, Brenda, can we just talk?" she pleaded. I glanced at Michael, who appeared completely detached from the conversation, already looking forward to our next adventure. It was clear he had moved on from the weight of his relationship with Megan. "Michael has made his wishes clear. If he doesn't want to meet you, Megan, I support him." "I don't want to either," I stated firmly, my resolve mirroring Michael's. Before she could respond, I hung up, feeling a symbolic release from Megan's obsessive hold over her son. To ensure further peace, I promptly blocked her number on my phone. "How about we go for ribeye? There's a good place nearby," Michael suggested cheerfully, a genuine smile spreading across his face. Relieved, I followed him, ready to enjoy our day free from past burdens. That spring, we married and simultaneously changed our living arrangements and both our phone numbers. Megan attempted to reach out through my parents a few times, inquiring about our whereabouts, but my mom cleverly misled her with tales of us being in exotic places like the Caribbean or Italy. Whether Megan believed these stories enough to follow them abroad remained a mystery. We considered having a wedding ceremony, but since Michael preferred not to invite Megan or any relatives connected with her, we planned a small, intimate ceremony abroad, just the two of us. While my parents were initially disappointed, they gave us their blessing and insisted we take plenty of photos to share with them later. Freed from the shadows of Megan's overbearing presence, Michael's demeanor brightened considerably. He smiled more freely and no longer seemed to live under a cloud of fear. I occasionally worried about him feeling as if he had lost his family, but my parents embraced him as their son, alleviating those fears. As we began to talk about starting a family, the idea of having children became a serious consideration. Imagining our future child, we laughed together, excited about the possibilities ahead. Our lives, now unbound from past constraints, were filled with optimism and joy as we envisioned our shared future.